the thing that's been changing my life for the positive, giving me focus and, keeping me busy and out of trouble, has been learning how to code, right? For me, it became the new boxing. It was something to keep my mind sharp and, build things, using my hands. And I was like, well, why don't we just teach more veterans how to code? I was able to, create this community, not only get to understand code, write code, but get jobs as software engineers. Like, I was not an expert at this time by any means. I feel more expert now, but that just means I've failed more than most. And it was super cool.
I love Jerome Hardaway. He's a fantastic guy. He is the founder and executive director of Vets Who Code, which is an organization that teaches vets how to code. Jerome is a vet himself. He taught himself to become a full-stack developer. Now he teaches others. I've known him for a really long time. I'm super excited to have him on the podcast because A, the work he does is really important, and B, I really want to know how he's using AI and how he's thinking about AI in kind of the modern way of teaching people to code. And that means when to use AI and when not to. And so we have a really great conversation about that. So check it out.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google.
Jerome, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and also thank you to the Google Gemini team for sending me all this cool Gemini swag. So
I was gonna say you were wearing like the run kit, like you're wearing like some of the really cool swag, which is fantastic. It looks great on you. So as I mentioned before, like you and I think we've talked about this. I don't even know how long we followed each other, but probably a decade at least. And we finally met in person this year, which was really awesome.
Meeting at Google I/O, and I was like, you look familiar. And you were like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
What's great about that though is that even though, you're meeting somebody, in person for the first time, you do know who they are. You're like, okay, we followed each other for years. Like I know who Jerome is. Jerome is awesome. So actually, kind of speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about your origin story a little bit and about the background around Vets Who Code. So you were in the Air Force, and when you were in the Air Force, did you study? Did you do any work in IT? Did you have any interest in computers, or was this all an interest that came after you left?
Roger that. I had no interest in computers. I didn't know anything about computers, anything. The funniest thing about my life is that I am continuously mislabeled because when you say Air Force, people automatically expect nerd. And when people look at my current background, the last 10, 11 years of my life, they expect me to say I was Intel or I was an officer or, I worked with computers in the Air Force, things of that nature. And I was like, no, I was security forces. I was security forces, 3POX1. I was there with the, making sure that the planes didn't, get attacked or working with the military working dogs and things of that nature. And people are like, wait, what? It's just a funny thing. Like I tell people, no, I was actually going to go to college for piano. I had a scholarship for Pacific University, and I was going to go pursue music because I'm from Memphis originally. So it's very hilarious.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So you're in security forces. You're in the Air Force. You leave the Air Force. So what did get you into tech, especially if you didn't have an interest in computers beforehand? Like what kind of sparked your interest and what made you decide, I guess, to settle down and go, okay, I want to do more with this and I want to become a software engineer?
So fast forward from 2004 to around 2010, I am leaving the military, and it's the height of the Great Recession. Because of the things that were going on, I was not getting any opportunities for my military experience. I was getting, thank you for your service, but we don't have any jobs for you. I'll never forget being turned down by the Department of Homeland Security, but only to get hired a year later for skills I picked up in software engineering and coding. But what really, got my head into, software engineering and coding was I saw this commercial, code.org, and I saw Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg talking on it, and I was like, okay, what are these nerds talking about? And then I went to Barnes and Noble picked up a book on SQL or SQL or whatever y'all want to call it. Don't beat me up in the comments. And I taught myself SQL to the point where I could do Postgres really, really well. And I ended up getting hired for that by the Department of Homeland Security as a data analyst for their certified TWIC program. So, like I said, it came full circle where the Department of Homeland Security didn't hire me for any skills I got in the military before a skill that I picked up from a book a year later. And, I was telling people, the amount of people who were yelling at me or who could yell at me between from the military to civilian life was like down to 4. It was always air conditioner. It's not like that in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, the amount of people who want to kick my butt is down to 0. So I'm like, I'm never going to leave. Plus the money was great.
Right.
So I'm here.
I love that. And actually, I mean, it's so fortuitous too. Like, so you got into Postgres, like before, like Postgres right now is one of the most popular database everybody uses it. It's really had a moment in the last, 5 or 6 years or so. But, like 2010, 2011, like it wasn't, as popular as it is now. So, that was, I think really great that for whatever reason you decided to pick up, data analysis, and B, like, it turned out to be really fortuitous because Postgres has become really popular, like I said, the last few years.
The reason I picked Postgres is because DARPA had funded the creation of it with Stanford. So that was like a cool piece of military history with tech, and I was like, that's the one I'll pick, right? So that's literally how I was, when you're 20, this is how you make decisions.
And DARPA, for our listeners who aren't from the United States, is the research organization that is responsible for the internet and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, so DARPA is like the Department of the Army's research arm, right? So they essentially, if they funded everything from GPS to the internet to no touch or touch screen. So, most of the things, that's like one of the funniest things about artificial intelligence now. This is the first tool that wasn't in the military first, and then consumers got it. This is like, consumers have it, and now the military is getting it.
Yeah, that is funny. That's really interesting. Although I think like the military, like not generative AI, not like transformers, but they have made investments, various countries and previous AI things. But yeah, you're right. This is kind of a funny moment. So you get this book at Barnes & Noble. You start to learn. Did you take any classes in person? Was this all self-taught stuff? What was your process?
It was self-taught. So here's, my process. I call it crawl, walk, run. And this is how, not only, how I teach myself, but how I teach everyone else. It's like, a progressive learning pattern. So I've always been this person where I'm going to practice the thing, and then I'm going to practice a new thing that piggybacks on the thing I've just practiced.
Mm-hmm.
So I can reinforce that learning of the old thing while also moving forward with the new thing, and keep building and building and building on that, so that to the point I can use all those things together, right? So, and I was just talking to some people earlier. I'm very big on writing and note taking, and the way my brain works, if I write it down, and especially if I take like good notes, then suddenly I don't need the notes. But if I don't take notes, or I don't take great notes, then I'm not gonna remember anything.
Okay, so you were kind of doing crawl, walk, run, kind of learning from one concept, then building on top of that, and then building on top of that until you could do more and more. You get your job with the Department of Homeland Security. When did you decide that you wanted to do the nonprofit Vetsu Code?
The nonprofit Vetsu Code was founded in 2014. So I was at work playing. I actually was playing hooky. I took the day off because I was like, it's hot outside. I want to be outside with my friends. And then a tragedy happened back home, and essentially, long story short, a veteran lost their life. And I was called by another friend of mine who was in the nonprofit space. She was telling me, hey, so the way this has gone down, the VA has, said they wouldn't help this person's family with burial. And because the VA has said it, all the nonprofits that are getting funding from the VA are also turning this family away, and I need your help with this. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, I don't know, but I know that you can figure out and do something. So I was like, okay, well, let's figure this out. I was wanting to break into software engineering anyway, and I've been learning and teaching myself how to code HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap. I already knew the Postgres, so going to MySQL
Right.
was not that big of a jump, and I know that I learned PHP, so it's like, you know, I'll just throw up a website and help, try to help his family raise some money. And in that time, it took us about 27 hours, but we raised like $13,000. Was able to give that to the family and have them, uh, be able to give a proper burial. And then I was like, well, I'm done. Goodbye. And, and people were like, wait, no, you can't do something like that and then just go back into the shadows like a good-natured vampire. And I was like, but that's what I want to do. So I sat
Right.
down and I thought about it, and I was like, well, the thing that's been changing my life for the positive, giving me focus and, keeping me busy and out of trouble, has been learning how to code, right?
Hmm.
For me, it became the new boxing. It was something to keep my mind sharp and, build things, using my hands. And I was like, well, why don't we just teach more veterans how to code? And I never forget, I was talking to people about that, about, teaching veterans how to code and become more technically literate. And people were like, can veterans even learn how to code? Into my face, in rooms where I was at. I was like, I'm a veteran and I code. So I'm assuming, yes, veterans do know how to code and should be able to do this pretty efficiently. Um, but that was in 2014. Then I started just teaching people remotely, because I was like, that was the best way in my mind to be able to reach veterans that would want to do this in a manner that would be worth my time, not doing one-offs and things of that nature. I was able to, create this community, talk, work through things, help people workshop, and to the point where, I got to the point where I was doing like 70, 80, 90 veterans at a time, help them, not only get to understand code, write code, but get jobs as software engineers and help them with their resumes, talking to them about this is how you should. I think this, like, I was not an expert at this time by any means. I feel more expert now, but that just means I've failed more than most. And it was super cool, super like fun until the White House called in 2015, and they were like, "So we've been hearing about this army dude that is teaching veterans how to code online." And I was like, "Well, I'm Air Force, so you might be talking about someone else." They're like, "Oh, our bad. Yes, you're Jerome. Yes, we are. We are talking about you. We thought you were Army." I was like, "Nah, I'm not Army at all. But thank you for servicing me. It's cool." So I was invited to the White House for the first ever White House demo day. So they invited 50 orgs, and I was the only one that was military and nonprofit to this. And I was like, holy crap. Like, and it really put things in view, because, like, as an enlisted troop, you see officers all the time, and you always had to salute them. But I was now in the White House, and the officers were opening doors and stuff for me. I was like, yo, this is kind of crazy, like, how this is
Yeah.
flipped. Being able to meet a president without, having a bad incident happen is, always cool. So after that, came back home, and this is when things really started blowing up and changing, because, it, one, it's a rarity to have your work noticed, period. To have
Yeah.
my work has always been very weird. It's always noticed in reverse. Like, someone will notice my work nationally, and then locally they'll notice my work. So I've never been the hometown hero. I've always been like, oh, you just dropped this thing like a debut album. Like, no, like, that was by accident. That's not what I wanted to do. So my first time I went viral. My second time, the White House, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to go back and do what I want to do. And people are like, no, you have to, codify this. You have to, make it more tangible. And I was like, sure, cool. So that's when we started moving to everything to where it's open source, having multiple cohorts. I try to do two cohorts a year. Going from there, I started really focusing on just doing JavaScript and Ruby because I saw the other code schools were doing that. But I started seeing around 2015, 2016, a lot of computer science grads that became engineering managers were kind of hating on Rubyists. I guess there's no other way to say it. Was, oh, the Ruby on Rails kids were finding it harder to get jobs because Ruby is made with programmer happiness in mind, and Rails is made with kind of like productivity in mind. So you can get a pretty good MVP or a Rails API up pretty easy. Like they didn't really like that. So they started, essentially keeping kids who had like full stack developer because that was a indicator that you went to a boot camp. They were not hiring those kids, and they weren't also hiring a lot of kids for Ruby. So that's when I was like, well, we're just gonna drop Ruby and we're gonna go all in on JavaScript. There's this cool thing called Node that is already coming out. So we were one of the first orgs to go full Modern Stack, React, Mongo, Node. Like we started doing all of that. But after that, everything just started really exploding. My troops were getting jobs. I was getting to the point where we were like getting a 93, 97%, between 93, 90%, 97% each year success rate. And
And let me just stop you for a second. When you say success rate, do you mean that this is like the success rate of people who've gone through, one of your boot camps, one of your courses, and have then found another job, or how are you ranking? I guess, how are you defining success?
the only merit is getting a job in software engineering, right? So it was one of those things that we were like, well, because we started seeing other organizations like, well, if you get any job with these skills or in space where it's like, a certain dollar amount, then that counts. And we were like, nah, we taught you how to be coders. We're gonna help you become a coder. And that's just how, I always felt like I wanted to make sure that I was helping people reach the goals that they wanted to reach. In the end, I'm only able to raise funds based upon the amount of troops, the storytelling, the success stories. People, like, that's how it works. Donors, like, that is super awesome, and I would love to help you continue doing this. The funniest thing that I love is when they hear how much it costs me to do some of the same outcomes or the same scale of outcomes that it takes like a hack reactor or something like that. Like, they're like, wait, you've been doing this for 11 years, raising no more than $50,000 a year? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, between partners like, like Google, y'all been a A1 partner for my work, Google, GitHub as well. Like, those type of technology partners, they really help offset the cost. Because of that, we've been able to keep that quality high and build like diehard fans, people that buy our merchandise, people that come to our demo day every Veterans Day and see what we're doing new and talk to people that we're impacting. The things that we're working on now are, scarier and crazier than ever. Like, some of the things we're going to debut for our Vetsuko demo day. It's so funny. These are things that I brought up 3 years ago when AI first came to the scene that we would be able to do that people did not think were possible.
So, like, give me some examples.
So essentially, we're going up and we're leveraging Gemini and our data to be able to score based upon their performance of how they do certain things, what they might need help on, or what they might not need help on, what they might be ready for more advanced. Think of it like going to leak code, and you go, hey, yo, you're really elite code hard on Python while leak code easy for JavaScript. Let's go ahead and do this. Or you may need to go a little bit lower and need some more remedial on this thing. So let's go ahead and focus on this while we're going to push you up here, keep you down here. And we're going to do that in real time. We're not going to wait until like a one-on-one or things like that. I'm going to get the notification from email that I'm going to talk, probably ping you, let you know, make sure that you are, that you're okay with this, because we have to keep that human in the loop. And then, we'll move forward with that lesson plan from there. Because I've had that problem with troops, because they are super advanced in one thing, and I'm like, I'm teaching this person something, they're in a cohort, and they should be doing something else, but I can't come and do something separate with them because
Right, because you can't skill yourself, right? So because there's only one Jerome, but with AI, it's sounding like you can do more customized lesson plans in real time, where it's able to kind of ascertain based on what their projects are doing and what the performance is to say, okay, well, you're doing really well here. Maybe you don't need to continue with this lesson, but you can go on to this lesson. Or maybe you need a little more work in this area. Is that what I'm getting?
yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
That's just one of the things. The funniest thing about one of the some of the things we were building is that I brought them up 3 years ago. People were like, I don't know. This time I took a slower route, and I was like, I'm going to wait till the for-profit starts doing this so I can have case studies for when I do it, so people see that as more. Oh, that does make sense now. So there's a thing that we're bringing in for our troops that is more focused, that's already been used in education, being used in higher ed right now. I'm actually a part of a team and at a company where I am going to be doing that work with higher education and colleges and doctors with interactive learning, with artificial intelligence. It's very funny to me because I'm like, oh, I said that this stuff could happen, and it's already happening in the for-profit side, and the big colleges side, and the private school side. So now I get to bring it directly to the veterans.
Very cool. But I do want to ask you, I guess, just like to go back just a step. When it comes to, I guess, like AI content, right, and how you're integrating, I guess, teaching AI tooling to your cohorts, right? Because you talked about kind of like how you started out with like kind of like the lamp stack or Ruby, really, I guess, actually, right? You were kind of teaching kind of that stack of stuff, and then technology changes. You move into to React, you move into other frameworks. Now AI is obviously a huge part of everything that is going on. So how do you then, I guess, start to introduce those concepts to your students, but also make sure that they're still learning like the fundamentals that they'll need in day jobs, and not just be regurgitating something to a prompt and not necessarily understanding what code's coming out.
So this is very fun. So first, I don't treat AI when it comes to education, in a silo. A lot of people do that. They want to do AI separately, and they don't, they want to do this separate from the thing. And I feel like AI is embedded in each layer, right? So we started the command line, and like the best coding tools and resources out there are going to push. Like, I love using Gemini, especially when it's like Gemini CLI. When I'm using it, I like to use it I'm using Claude Squad with it, and I'm showing people how to use Claude Squad and Gemini and have like agents. And I'm having this agent check this agent's work. So I'm training
Oh,
this
cool.
agent to look at this agent's work. And I teach the tool with, like, on top of what we're doing. So yes, you're going to learn AI. We're going to use command line and AI, right? So it's more about building new workflows, building new mind maps, and integrating AI into the workflow versus keeping it separate.
Okay.
One of the rules we have is if you use AI, you have to use ask. You can't use edit or agent when you're learning.
Okay.
And because that's something that I do. I don't use
Yeah.
agent or edit when I'm learning.
That's really interesting. Now, do you get any pushback from folks about that? Because I agree with you. I think in principle, like it is actually better, I think, for me to learn to do something the hard way rather than to use tools to go along with it. But man, it's so easy to just let the agent do the work sometimes, right? And then, I guess, do you get any pushback from folks about this, or do you like how do you enforce this sort of?
I say hard training, easy fight, easy training, hard fight, right? And I was like, so you're one, I'm not training you just to build things. I am training you for the entire like job hunt cycle, right? I think you and
Okay.
we've spoken this before. The hardest part of software engineering roles is getting your first software engineering job, right?
Yeah.
It's weird because you have access to all of these tools that make, productivity tools that make essentially you could get done in days, which you just get done in weeks. But for the purpose of the interview, you can't use any of them. You're not going to be tackling this code challenge with internet and with your Copilot or your Gemini. You're going to be doing this by yourself, just you off the dome, and that's what's going to make or break this. That helps them, like, come for being able to, you know, understand that, all right, this is why he's doing it. And also, people want to become experts, right? I think that's the best part about teaching veterans, teaching people that, are military, coming from the military, is they want to be the best. They don't want to do it the easy way. They want to do something that's going to help flatten their level of entry into tech. They'll do that hard work. They'll pay that tax, right? All they have to do is tell them the why and explain to them. And there's very few pushback. I'm not telling them to do something that I don't do. Like, this is
Hmm.
how I literally do things myself.
That was going to be another question I was going to ask you, is that, obviously, like, you've become adept at updating your coursework, as the times change, and as, kind of the job market's change and whatnot. But with AI, there's new stuff all the time. Like, if you and I were talking this time a year ago, MCP did not exist. Agentic stuff was starting to become a thing, but like MCP as a concept was still a couple months out. Kind of that full bore thing wasn't there. There were a lot of, there were the thinking models. I don't even know if the first thinking models were even out yet, right? So we were at like a very different place than we are even a year later. So it moves so quickly. How do you, I guess, keep up with all of that stuff, and how frequently do you update, I guess, the content and what you're teaching?
The AI wars or the AI updates reminds me of the JavaScript wars, as I used to call them,
Yeah.
where, every week there was a new JavaScript framework that dropped,
Yes.
and you didn't
And
know
then
what
sometimes
to
a meta
learn.
framework. Sometimes a meta
Yes.
framework, right? Because we had so many, we needed frameworks for our frameworks.
For me, it's just like like I said, I'm a big reader. I focus on the thing. I use I do a couple of newsletters. I think the biggest newsletter I use for this is Every. But I also, I follow. I mean, it's hard to not get the things from between Bytes Go and everything out there about MCP stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to keep the main thing when you're teaching. So I always focus on how close is this to the revenue line? What is the percentage of jobs asking for this? What is percentage of hiring managers or employers asking for exposure to this stuff? And
Right.
that's where, the curriculum kind of gets, well, I work my way backwards from the demand of the market versus from what the new hot thing.
So you're looking at the trends in the hiring market. What's the job market looking for, and then you use that to inform your content structure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we use AI with that, right? So we're getting all this data, and we're looking at doing percentages. So I have a whole data pipeline set up that ingests this data. We extract, we transform, we load, and then we use Gemini as the next layer for that to be able to help us get our trends. And there are certain things that we see that Python and SQL, two top,
Mm-hmm.
like they right now. People who have at least 2 to 3 years of experience in Python and SQL, they're having their job hunt essentially halved. Beyond that, it's not so much looking at people that are strong in their language. It's looking at people who are strong with and keeping up to date with their cloud stack, right? So everybody is kind of becoming a cloud engineer that's using this type of tool, or a cloud engineer that does this. You're either AWS engineer or a Google engineer, or I guess GCP would be the best term for
Mm-hmm.
that, GCP engineer, or you're an Azure engineer, and you're using those tools at scale to be able to do data pipelines, ETL, put products to market, or AI will RAG, things of that nature.
Yep.
So we have about 16, 17 hours worth of content on data just because of the job hunt and what to look for, things of that nature.
Right.
Having those type of conversations or these type of processes really, like, it opens your eyes, and like like I said, it keeps the main thing. The main thing, you have to focus on the signal and not the noise. I really am focusing on helping the students critically think and, navigate this world, and like, be calm, relax. I've done this before. I remember when the boot camp craze popped off, and then people started fighting against it by not hiring Rubyus. I remember the JavaScript wars. I am old Sarge. I've been through all of that. And then when you say all this stuff, people are like, dang, it really was a wild time to learn how to code in the early 2010s. Like, yeah, it was wild. And people don't understand how, like you and I, we came up in the same era. You're like,
Yeah.
wait.
It was actually. It's funny to think about, but it's a wild time now. But no, but those are good lessons. Those are really good lessons. All right. I want to go on now to I guess some quick fire questions for you. So I'm just going to ask you some real quick things. What was the last thing that you automated for yourself?
Last thing I automated myself was connecting all my kids' schedules, including the adults, so that way I can have them on just one thing and they can add it, and I don't have to control it. I just see it on my phone, so I know where people need me at.
I love that. I love that. What was the last thing that you asked Gemini?
Last thing I asked Gemini was to help me with an outline from my talk, because I was like, I can only give 20 minutes and I have 16 hours. So I
Yeah.
was able to put up like a ton of resources in it.
Cool. Cool. All right. What is something that you can do now that you couldn't do 6 months ago?
Man, see, I think I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's say a year ago then. If 6 months is too short.
Yeah, that actually makes it a lot better, because I was like, I've been on the AI train for a minute, like, so 3 years feels like forever. 4 years feels like forever. So thing I can do now is, like, when we talk about MCPs and being able to connect those. That's something that I can do now and leverage with all of my tools. But the thing with AI now is, um, I think because my expertise with programming and with AI, I'm spending less money on tools, because
Okay.
I'm using less tools because I don't need them, because now I can build like a tool for one. Like, I can now I have a process where I have my AI note taker, and then I can also have it coming directly to my Slack, and then I'm adding and editing directly in Slack. I'm doing all these things from this one area now, because of these connectors of these applications and AI and things of that nature. So I feel like that, I mean, spending less money to do more is the thing that I'm doing now.
That's awesome. I was gonna say now have your API bills gone up? Because mine have.
Mine's have not. Like, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the way I use AI is very different from people. Like, I'm a big model switcher, and I like the model that like Claude only reviews code. Uh, Gemini is the one that's writing the code, but Claude is the code reviewer, and that keeps the cost down. Especially if I'm doing following the software engineering pipeline rules of,
Mm-hmm.
doing it, one branch at a time, one ticket at a time, one problem at a time. Like, it keeps everything at bay. And I'm managing uh, Gemini as the coder, and making sure, like, working with it. Then once we pushed it to GitHub and we push it to get a PR, I'm managing Claude and Copilot to review it, and then, like, that's just my process, and it has not impacted like it hasn't impacted my spend at all. But you want to know what's the real sleeper in AI that people aren't talking about? JetBrains. JetBrains IDE for PyCharm. When you use like Gemini CLI, and like, I have my Gemini CLI, my Gemini code attached to it. It is a real, like, Gemini and PyCharm have been working like wonders for me, and I think people are sleeping on using Gemini with PyCharm. When you combine Gemini with the IntelliSense that JetBrains already has, you're getting a wonderful experience, and people are really sleeping on that. I don't hear enough about the Gemini and JetBrains stuff. I hear barely anything about it. I'm like one of three people that I'm like, oh no, when you put that Google Gemini layer right on top of that JetBrains IntelliSense, or like that, it's a wonderful experience.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that. All right. So final question is going to be, I guess, and you talked about this a little bit, but like, what's the next set of problems you're trying to solve?
Next set of problems we're trying to solve is how to help bring to the masses about the changes in the workforce and how to solve them, right? So I have 16 hours of data. I've been doing a lot of research. I know every layer and section of getting a job as software engineer in this era with AI. But it's just like, how do I format them? How do I get this to the right people? Which verticals? Because when I say data and I'm like content of this, I'm like, oh, this is for a different vertical. Like, people who write JavaScript require different things than people that do DevOps. People who DevOps require different things than people who do ML or data engineering and things like that, right? So, it's so many moving things. I'm like, how do I help everyone is the thing that I'm like looking for. And like that's like the problem I'm trying to solve.
I love that. So basically what we need to do is we need to create like a Jerome agent, right? So that everybody can have like a Jerome like in their CLI or in their favorite tool or whatever the case may be, and help them
Jerome,
along.
A Python Jerome.
Yes. Right? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like have one for each of these things. I would love that.
Yeah.
All right. Jerome, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. We will have links in the show notes where people can go to learn more about Vets Who Code. But if you want to give us a plug for the website or the GitHub or where people should go if they want to learn more, if they want to donate.
Roger that. So 3 places we love when it comes to Vets Who Code is our YouTube channel, Vets Who Code YouTube, Vets Who Code LinkedIn, and of course vetswhocode.io. And you can donate from anywhere on the site with a donation page.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for helping so many people learn and get skilled up and get jobs. I think what you do is incredible. I think you're an incredible person. And I can't wait to see the Jerome agent hit the streets.
Oh man, that'll be the day. My wife was like, all we need is more versions of you. I can hear her voice right now.
Thank you so much, Jerome.
No, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. For more information about our guests today, please check out the description.
And for more great conversations like this, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, thanks for listening.